A very good afternoon I bid to our lecturers and friends. So today, four of us are going to present an oral presentation on language assessment. So, as to start, this will be the content that we are going to discuss for today. To start, we would like to discuss on what is meant by classroom-based assessment. Next. Okay, classroom-based assessment. So in 2019, there are no more examination for level 1 pupils from year 1 to year 3. Instead of focusing on examination, pentapsara bilik belajar is done in the form of quizzes, role play, storytelling, as well as simple projects. No examination is being given. However, the teacher they focus more on character building through establishing a teaching and learning culture which is more meaningful and more fun. And this is according to the DSKP. Besides that, Asian 2005, he defines that classroom-based assessment refers to the process of collecting, synthesizing, interpreting information to aid the decision to aid classroom decision making. So we can know that classroom-based assessment is very appropriate as it is meant to gain pupils information to know about the learners' learning and how to measure their achievement when they are doing some projects or doing some discussion in the classroom. And the assessment can be formative as well as it can be summative. Okay, next.
So next I will be discussing on what is character building. Next. So according to EVA 2016, character building is actually a process which nurtures and promotes the ethical, intellectual, social, and also emotional development of an individual. So it is also stated in one of the 6 students' aspiration in Malaysia education blueprints, which is one of the skill is the leadership skill. So the education system will help every student to reach his or her full potential by creating formal and also informal opportunities for the students to work in teams and to take on leadership roles. So in the context of education system, leadership encompasses 4 dimensions, which are entrepreneurship, resilience, emotional intelligence, and also strong communication. So there are actually 5 reasons on why education should be uh, based on character building. Is that first, it is the process of acculturation of the most effective character education, and education has a very long time span, and also it is believed to be able to overcome negative tendencies and also behave badly. So the Ministry of Education actually create and develop the potential of human learners to become more holistic in gaining their knowledge. So it is an investment system values to educators, learners, and also education in both formal and non-formal situation.
And next, I will be explain on what is meaningful learning and how does school-based assessment actually leads to meaningful learning. And and before the classroom assessment may lead to meaningful learning, the teacher in designing the assessment, they have to ask this kind of questions. Does the assessment involve project-based learning? Does it incorporate the 4 C's, which is the creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication? And does the assessment design involve independent learning? And is it inquiry-based? And is it authentic? And what is meaningful learning actually? Also, Bell says that The most important single factor is that influencing learning is what is the pupils already know. And meaningful learning, which implies longer retention than memorizing, and occurs when humans relate new concepts to pre-existing familiar concepts, and changes are produced in our cognitive structures, concepts are modified and created, and it is a useful tool because it enhances the learning of the pupils, and it will generate greater retention and memories to the real life situation in this kind of meaningful learning. And also Bells also say that meaningful learning principles is the pupils is able to learn, and that when the concepts are linked, they are able to acquire knowledge, and when they are able to relate relevant information, it will occur cognitive structures in coherent output. And the essential principles to do meaningful learning is that open works enables all the learners to learn. And motivation help to improve classroom environment, and it makes learners to be interested in their task. And it that means it must be related to the environment of the learners, and the assessment must be creativity, which will enhance the imagination and intelligence of the pupils in that particular activity in that lesson. And nevertheless, the educational activities must be considering the special needs of the students. And next, we'll move on to the advantages of meaningful learning experiences, which will be explained by Jen Lee.
Thank you, Pauline. Meaningful learning experiences will lead to school being regarded in a much positive way by the pupils. And for teachers, school teaching becomes an enjoyable activity. It will not be a burden to the teachers because it involves both students and also the teachers' participation. Thirdly, environment in the classroom considerably improves, and learners have a much better conduct in their behavior. There will be also interaction and communication between the teachers and learners, not just the teachers dominating the classroom, the lesson, but learners providing their ideas, giving their opinions. So we look at how does classroom-based assessment lead to character building and meaningful learning. Next, yeah. So there are a few examples, and the first one is performance-based assessment. In language courses and programs around the world, test designers are now taking this new and more student-centered agenda. According to Alderson, 2001, 2002. Yes. Instead of just offering paper and pencil selective response tests, performance-based assessment of language is used, which includes, for example, oral production, written production, open-ended responses, integrated performance across all the skills, and also group performance, instead of just the old school way, the old style, multiple choice questions, MCQ. These are some of performance-based assessments example. Okay, next. Pupils are assessed as they perform actual or simulated real-world tasks in performance-based assessment. This contains higher content validity as the learners are measured in the process of performing the targeted linguistic acts. Performance-based language assessments is the presence of interactive tasks. And in this kind of interactive tasks, test takers are measured in the act of speaking, requesting, responding, or in combining listening and speaking, and also integrating reading and writing skills. The assessment involves learners in actually performing the behavior that we want to measure, not just talk and talk. And paper pencil tests certainly do not elicit such communicative performance. Okay, so this is performance-based assessment. Now we move on to role play.
So now I would like to explain on how can role play be used as a classroom-based assessment and how can it actually helps in meaningful learning and as well as character building. So according to Russell and Shepard 2010, they define that role play and simulation are the forms of experiential learning, which means that the learners they take on different roles, assuming themselves as the character, and then they be in their shoes and to demonstrate and to be in the character of the assigned role. All right. So in this situation, the pupils they are required to evaluate and make decision and as well as interpersonal communication skills. And when role play and simulation is used, it provides an opportunities for the pupils to dramatize situation. And the pupils first they have to understand the perspective of others, only that they can actually be in the shoes and then express themselves. All right, so this is an several examples given. A boy dropped his lunch tray, or a girl missed catching the ball. So this is some examples, very short simulation which can be used in a classroom. All right, next. Okay, so this is another example of role play. The teacher actually get the pupils towards they have to learn on how to deal with people. It can be on a phone conversation or it can be face-to-face conversation. And this assessment actually it involves the learners in the real life situation where the pupils they are given a scenario and they have to brainstorm on the ideas given. When everyone is taking part in the discussion, they might come up with different creative everyone might come up with different thoughts and some creative ideas may be used. So this creative idea discussion through the discussion given, they can actually help the pupils to have a better problem solving skill. All right, let's move on to the next one. We'll be talking about the steps when role play is being used. So first, teacher might need to get the pupils to warm up in a group, means that a situation will be given for the pupils. So they need to have a rough idea on what is the situation be. So next will be select participants. So here means that teacher can either select, assign the roles for the pupils, but the best way is to get the pupils to choose the role by themselves. All right, that's the second step. Let's move on to the third step. Third step is to prepare the observer. As the pupils they are doing role play in the classroom. So teacher must make sure that there are pupils who are actually performing, and then there are another group of pupils who are actually be the observer to write down to evaluate their friends' performance. All right, next. Then time for preparation. Teacher must be very sure that there are time for pupils to do some preparation so that they can perform well. All right, next. Innate means that the pupils, this refers to the five steps. The fifth step means that the pupils have to spontaneously live in the situation. Here means that the pupil will start the role play. All right, next. Okay, in this last step, discuss and evaluate. So the action of the pupils will be evaluated by teachers and as well as the comments given by their friends. So teachers can actually differentiation can be given to the pupils, and then the pupils are actually required to be in the shoes and they are role play. So from the discussion given, the pupils can actually the experience that they have encountered before. So this actually more gives more on a gives more on an authentic situation. All right, next. So, how it relates to character building and meaningful learning? The task assign the real-world situation which the pupils might encounter, like for example, to book a hotel. And through the discussion, creative and critical thinking can be triggered, and as well as problem-solving skills is developed. So it helps the pupil to communicate with their friends, as well as they can deal with people in another proper way instead of just giving them tasks. So this is the second example of classroom-based assessment. So the next one will be explained by Holly.
Thank you, Grace and Jenny. So we'll move on to the third example of classroom-based assessment, which will lead to the character building and meaningful learning. And the third one will be the project-based assessment. Project-based assessment actually provides students with the opportunity to tackle real-world situations by their nature, have no easy solution and no solution at the present time. And the student will learn to manage their time, to interpret data sets, resolve value conflicts between their group members, and prepare and communicate the results of their investigation. In other words, the project-based assessment actually use their experiences to learn to manage real-life situations, which will involve the first one, authenticity. Authenticity, which means that it will provide the real-life experiences, making them career and college ready. And the second one will be the motivation. It will give the student voice and choice. Means that they can choose the topic that they want to do on. For example, one project which is regarded with the scientific projects, build a rocket. And the second one will be the creativity. Creativity is they will find creative and innovative ideas to boost critical thinking. For example, a project that they need to do on a technological project, which they can innovate the social media into education. And the next one will be the collaboration between the group members where they work together, they discuss together, they communicate together, they interpret the data, collect the data, and they will get the ideas. For example, of project-based assessment, the first one will be to publish a newsletter magazine. They can have a group of members to have a discussion in publishing a newsletter and magazines. And the next one will be the technical project. For example, create a robot, YouTube channel, or social media applications. They can have ideas to create a social media application uh, to in to to increase and enhance their critical thinking, creative thinking, and meaningful learning, which will suit in the real life situation. And the third one will be the scientific project. For example, the teacher they can give a project for the student to create an ecosystem. And from that ecosystem, they can learn from the project, the process of the process of building an ecosystem and how does it create a ecosystem. And a project is meaningful if it fulfills two criteria, which the first one will be the student must perceive the work as personally meaningful, as a task that matters and that they want to do well. As a quote saying that to make the students to do on her own, then they will remember rather than teaching them, flipping the textbook and doing exercise books. And the next one will be a meaningful project fulfills an educational purpose. For example, the ecosystem. It is in the syllabus of the textbook and it will fulfill the educational purpose where they can learn the scientific process when they are doing the ecosystem. And the PBL structure actually leads itself to building instructive motivation because it center student learning around an essential center questions or problem and a meaningful outcome will occur. And it makes meaningful for the students for them to give them choice and voice to become better. And next, we'll move on to the last example, which is a news report project, then Jenly will explain.
Cindy.
Cindy, sorry.
Cindy.
Okay, so this news report project will be a very good example of how to develop the character and also a very meaningful project and process for learning of the pupils. So at first, the pupils will be given the autonomy to choose any topic uh, from the topics, from the choices that the teacher gave them. And then here they will be divided into few groups where they can decide on which character that they need, that they choose to do, for example, writing report or maybe TV presenters. And then based on the topic, teacher will pose some essential question to help them in getting them to do their work. And the pupils will collaboratively brainstorm ideas and teacher facilitate. So here, leadership skill will be evidence where the pupils will work as a group to get their work done and in a successful manner. And then once the report has done, the pupils can start to rehearse on how they would like to perform the news report. And then after the performance or the role play, the pupils will then again sit as a group and try to reflect and discuss based on what they have learned in the project. So here it is a very meaningful process for them to learn how to deal with the authentic situation based on this project. So the next slide will show some example on how they will carry out the project and also a news report template for them. So come to the next slide. Um, the authenticity of the project actually gives people a real life experiences where they learn to how to report the news, how to create newspaper, which produce a meaningful outcome. And the collaboration between peers and teachers instill leadership among them and also at the same time develop the problem solving skill. So the increases engagement and motivation to do well and opens the door for deeper learning where they can actually learn a lot more than what's inside the textbook. So student centered and it requires reflection on both the process and also the content to be more meaningful for them to gain their knowledge. And people's actively engaging in the real world task and will be the personal meaningful experience for them. So, in the conclusion for this presentation will be an ideal education system should be produced where the students it instills the correct values of life that enable them to make more meaningful contribution to society and not only focuses on academic achievement but also the quality of the pupil. And then teachers here also at the same time plays a very important role in build the character of the students and uh, providing some engaging and meaningful activity for them to learn more. So the next slides will be some references for us to complete the presentation, and here it marks the end of our presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.